closing. And about 7 seconds at the top of the hour, we've got 6 states closing. And here are our first projections of the results in these states. Starting with Georgia. In the great state of Georgia, the presidential race in Georgia at this hour, NBC News projects it is too early to call, although we do expect we'll get a lot of Georgia vote very quickly. Moving on to Kentucky, where we had some polls close an hour ago, but now the state of Kentucky is closed. There, NBC News projects that Donald Trump has won the presidential election in Kentucky. Moving to the Northeast, to Vermont, NBC News projects that Kamala Harris has won the presidential race in the great state of Vermont. Moving now to Virginia. NBC News projects that in the state of Virginia, the presidential race is too early to call. Moving now to South Carolina. South Carolina polls are closed, and NBC News projects that it is too early to call. And finally, our last poll closing of this hour is in Indiana. We had Indiana, some polls closed an hour ago. Now the state of Indiana has closed. NBC News projects that in Indiana, the race is too early to call. I will say we are expecting quite a lot of vote from Georgia and most of Florida, even as some of Florida voting precincts are not closed. We'll get a lot of that vote soon. Right now, in terms of the road to 270, we're very early on that road. Donald Trump with 8 electoral votes and Kamala Harris with 3. Let's take a look at what we've got in the Senate race thus far. We do have some Senate races in states that have just closed. In Virginia, we've got Democratic incumbent Senator Tim Kaine and Hung Cao, who is the Republican challenger right there. NBC News projects that the Virginia Senate race is too early to call. Going now to Indiana. In the Indiana Senate race, we've got Republican Jim Banks and Democrat Valerie McRae. Indiana projects that, NBC News projects that the Indiana Senate race is too early to call. And up to Vermont, where incumbent independent who caucuses with the Democrats, Bernie Sanders, is facing Republican Gerald Malloy in Vermont. The Senate race, NBC News projects, is too early to call. Let's look at a couple of governor's races. In Indiana, we have a very closely watched governor's race, which itself is interesting, given Indiana's reputation as a strong red state. Republican Mike Braun versus Democrat Jennifer McCormick. The Indiana governor's race is too early to call. And finally, the Vermont governor's race at this hour between Republican incumbent Phil Scott and Democratic challenger Esther Charleston. The Vermont governor's race is too early to call. Those are our initial projections for the first big round of poll closings.